Hi, everybody,
Hi.
and I hope y'all are well. I have the wonderful Cleo with me just now, and I'm really excited to have a chat and just go through your work and also some interesting topics that I'm sure everyone's going to learn from. So, yeah, so a massive hello to Cleo.
Hi.
How have you been today?
Yeah, good. Good. Like it's a busy morning, which is good. Good to have a little bit of work to do. So trying to be productive. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So
I'm very glad. Yeah, so to kick off, it would be super lovely if you could just give us a little introduction of what you do and how you kind of got to where you are today.
okay. So I am a set designer. At the moment, mainly work in events, but started off in like theatre and film. Um, I kind of got into it by doing a kind of set design for stage and screen course at university, and then thought I would stay in like theatre and film forever, and kind of sort of sidestepped into the world of events more recently, the last few years. So set design was, like I was saying, something that was introduced to me when I was at university. So I went in and did an art foundation, and then one of my main tutors was a set designer. And so when it came to kind of deciding what to do next, she was like, well, why don't you try this? And I tried it and I liked it. So I kind of stuck with it through my degree. So that's how I got into set design, or even knowing about it. I didn't even really know what that entailed, like kind of coming out of school. So it's pretty much my tutor who introduced it to me. And then obviously as I left uni, I started doing bits of work myself and with other groups of people, kind of developed more of a love for it. And that's kind of why I've stuck with it up until now. So set design is still what I mainly do. And more the graphic and illustration stuff is kind of accompanies it a lot of the time. So I've kind of learned a lot of kind of the graphic side of things because I've had to use it within my set design. And so it's kind of like something that I do now on the side, because I've had to. There's a lot of, especially like my early jobs, you find yourself kind of being a jack of all trades. You kind of have to do everything because often the budgets are really low and there aren't enough people to do all the multiple jobs that need to happen to make a performance or whatever it is come together. So you find yourself doing several jobs, and the kind of graphic design elements of my skill set developed from having to do stuff. And now it's one of the kind of main things I do alongside my set design.
So good, so interesting. Do you find as well, back in the time that you were doing set design, working for clients and producers and things like this, is it? Do you think it's kind of the same as when you're working as a graphic designer and an illustrator now?
Good question. I think with I was going to say with set design, I feel, because especially if you're creating something at scale, the kind of last minute change elements that happen right up until the day that happen, I find in graphics, when you're doing graphic design, they don't happen quite as much in set design. Not that they don't happen, they definitely do, but because something ultimately has to be built, it's like the deadline's gone. You can't change it after this time because it literally won't be able to be made. I mean, they will push and try right up until the last second, but I find with graphic design, it's like forever. I mean, the amount of times I've written final version 1, final version 2, final version, when I'm doing more graphic element stuff for a client, it's insane. And you do get a little bit of that with set design, but because you have to kind of take into consideration a whole team has to make it has to be installed. Like there's lots of different, it's not just you and the piece. There's a little bit less of it, but they're very similar worlds. I think. I also feel like what's interesting is I feel like a lot of clients feel or have like an inner desire to be a designer. So as much as they've come to you as a professional to give your professional opinion and create something for them, they also really want to do it, and kind of they've got their Pinterest board together, so they want to like tell you maybe things that you feel like maybe I should advise you on that because you've come to me as a professional. Just saying. So there's always that kind of like there's that kind of element of the relationship that you have to kind of work out, I think, and I think that's something you learn as you go along.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience as well. Like, I think a lot of people have experienced that where the client already knows what they want. I mean, in some ways that can be a good thing sometimes.
Yes.
But then,
sure,
as you say, you are the professional. They could have a real bad idea and you're like,
yeah,
that's not going to work if you want it on a t-shirt, or that's not going to work if you want that I don't know, on your business card. It's just not clear enough and things like this. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, that one.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Moving a little bit forward from this, what do you think is your inspiration when it comes to the work that you produce?
I think that comes from a multitude of places. I think there's not one thing that I go to for inspiration, and sometimes it comes from the most random things. I think it could come from an exhibition I went to and I saw something that sparked something. I think that something like that would work really well here, or it could be a book that I've read, it could be a film that I've watched and I've liked some of the imagery in it. It could be a conversation I've had with a friend and they've shown me, like, it's so many different places it comes from. There's not just one, there's not one source of inspiration that I go to every time, which I think is probably how most designers generate their ideas. I think there's a whole host of places and people and things that happen that all of a sudden click something in your head. I could be, normally it's like I'm lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and something clicks in my head, because obviously I'm not supposed to sleep. So often things randomly bounce into my head, a memory of something that happened ages ago at some godforsaken hour. But yeah, from anywhere and everywhere, I think my inspiration comes. It depends on the project as well. So yeah.
What do you find the most common project is that you get? Or is it super varied?
I think it all depends. It depends a lot on where I'm working. I think because the last year and a bit, year and a half, I've been freelance. So over this year and a half, it's been way more varied. Prior to this, I was working with one company, so it was a lot more similar. The jobs were a lot more similar. So I guess when I was there, it was a lot of like kind of private parties with similar, kind of similar arrangements, not too dissimilar themes or like the way they wanted it to look. Whereas now, it's very varied. So it can change completely in terms of the look from one project to another, which I prefer. I really do. I get bored easily, I think. So I like it when there's some variety, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Like, doing the same thing all the time is just like, not the funnest thing. So no, that's great to hear that you do such variety of work, because I think even with your creativity, that helps a lot in
for sure,
like getting inspired and doing different things as well. So yeah, that's really encouraging. You have your own business as well as freelancing.
Apparently I'm a business owner now.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I don't know. That kind
Bit
of
a deal.
That happens over lockdown. I guess it was a thing that was bubbling in the back of my head for some time, like for a good couple of years now. I think I've been wanting to do it as a little side thing, almost like an experiment. Like, I think, and again, going back to what we were saying earlier, where the graphic design stuff has become more and more part of my work, whereas I kind of went into a set design didn't really know anything about graphic design, but because I had to do a lot of it for my work, now it's kind of quite a major part of what I do. And then, I kind of wanted to start this little business of like kind of greeting cards and art prints, which had a focus on diversity. I wanted it to be sustainable. I wanted it to be inclusive. And this has kind of been bubbling away for, maybe a couple of years. But I haven't had the time to do anything about it. And then all of a sudden we have Coronaville and we can't leave our houses. So I thought, well, maybe now's the time to see what this could be. And so, I've just been working on it since we've all been in lockdown and launched it like last week. So I'm a business owner now. So it's early days and there's a journey to go, but it's quite exciting and scary and it's intimidating and all of those things that running your first business, I guess, is. I'm learning a hell of a lot, things that I didn't expect to have to learn in order to open a business. But I'm sure there are many people who can do it better than me. I'm definitely I'm no expert, but I'm learning, and it's a fun journey. I guess we'll see how it goes. But it's exciting.
It is, definitely. Do you have any resources that you're using quite a lot when it comes to helping you with business?
So I read a lot of like blogs from people who started small businesses, or just like trying to speak to friends who trying to do the same thing, or friends of friends who've done the same thing. I mean, Instagram, again, like I have a love-hate relationship with social media in general, but it is good at kind of quickly seeing what's out there, what other people are doing and how they're doing it, especially if you're a novice and you've never done it before. There are a lot of links or things that can point you in the right direction of where to get advice from, or like, resources to use. I'm kind of on the internet way more than I would usually be, but it's kind of the way that I'm trying to teach myself how to do this.
I found I'm working with the Princess Trust just now, and they are really good.
Great.
They provide loads of really helpful resources that are free as well. So there's the business plan, like breakdown on what to do for each section. Oh, so helpful, right? I just was like, really thank goodness there's something like this out there, because I'm exactly in the same boat as you. Like, what the flip am I doing? Like, all of this is brand new. What is money? What is tax? Like,
I'm flagging it every way. Absolutely.
And when it comes to creating these pieces that you sell in your little business, how do you go about your process?
Sometimes things just pop into my head and I'm like, oh, that would work. And then it's a case of sketching it out and re-sketching it out and re-sketching it out until I've managed to sketch out what it is exactly that I want. And then I'll generate that into a proper illustration. Usually I try not to sit on something for too long, because I feel like the more I overthink it, I've lost it. Like, the more I try and rework it, it never seems to work out. So I try to, at least in the initial stage, to do it quite quickly and try and get something quite basic out quite quickly. And then even if I put it to bed for a couple of days and then look at it again, and if I still like it, then it's probably worth making into an actual illustration. And if I don't, then I'll think of something else. Or sometimes I know instantly almost, and I just know that it will work. It's kind of instinctive, and I just go for it straight away. But more times than not, I'll like do a few sketches in between just to make sure that I like what's in my head I can actually produce on paper. Normally music is always there. That's a big part of my creative process, I would say. And a nice cup of tea.
What's your favorite music? What's like the music that gets you going?
Oh, I've got such a range. It depends on my mood. It really does. I couldn't even pick one type, because I listen to every type of, it really does depend on my mood. Sometimes it'll be something really mellow. Sometimes if I'm really concentrating on something, especially if I'm concentrating on anything with words, I can't listen to something with words because it distracts me too much. So if I'm trying to, if I was, for example, if I was trying to write something creative, I would have to have something that was purely instrumental. But if I'm drawing, then it's okay because I don't have to focus on words. So I can then, I listen to a range of stuff. It depends. It might start off in the morning, I'm quite energetic and I've got some energy and I have a bit more upbeat. And as the day goes, it might become more mellow and more like jazz vibes as the day draws to an end. But literally, the spectrum of music I listen to is wide. Wow.
I can relate to that. I have the same thing. Yeah, if I'm like concentrating on something, I couldn't have like a song that I really love on the back in the background because I know that I will just sing along to it and lose track of what I'm doing. End up dancing around the room probably.
Yep. Same. Oh. Yeah. Or typing what you're listening to. So you end up writing what the lyrics of the song as opposed to what you're supposed to be writing. Yeah.
I have done that before. Guilty. Definitely guilty. When you're making your pieces, do you use a particular software or do you just draw it by hand and then
usually everything starts off by hand. I'll do a pencil sketch of whatever it is, and then I mainly use Illustrator, but then I guess I use Illustrator and Photoshop it in unison. Like I go between the two. I might draw kind of the more basic vector outlines in Illustrator, and then if I want to add like brush strokes or something a bit more artistic, I'll take it into Photoshop and do that there. But then everything that I lay out in terms of my cards and stuff, then I'll take it back into Illustrator to kind of finish it all off and make sure that nothing comes out blurry and all of that stuff. So I use the two equally, I guess, the most. That's for my cards and my illustration. For my set design stuff, I use up to now I've been using like AutoCAD, which is kind of like a technical drawing software, and a combination of like SketchUp and VO, which is a rendering software where I build the room up and create a visual from that. That's what I've been using up until now. I'm now learning a new one, which is called Vectorworks, which is kind of, I think you have two camps. You have like the AutoCAD. This is going to sound really random because if you don't know this software, it's probably dead boring. But you have the two camps of like AutoCAD and Vectorworks. And I've been in AutoCAD camp, and now I'm trying to change over to Vectorworks camp. That's what I'm trying to teach myself. But yeah, there's a bunch of software that I use.
Because I know for myself, like I have a graphic tablet, so if I do drawing, sometimes I just draw it straight in, but before I would scan it in and then just edit it a little bit on Photoshop and Illustrator and things like that, or even draw on top of it on Illustrator. So as you say, the lines are clearer and things like this. So it's just interesting.
I too. Yeah, I have a graphic tablet. I love it. I love it so much.
It breaks my heart seeing the events like industry going downhill right now. The fact that I don't think it ever will be the same. Like even I think it was like their plans for music festivals, and they had, I don't know if you saw it, but it was like these little podiums that your group could like
with like fences around them. There's like, is that the future of events? Who knows? Like I saw that.
It just it's like it loses the purpose of going to events, like the atmosphere and it's just a bit of a shame, really, isn't it?
I mean, definitely. I mean, the nature of events is it's the congregation of people, and this is an illness or a virus that is completely wiped out the possibility of large masses of people congregating in spaces. So as far as events go, it's I think it's probably the hardest hit, and it's going to take the longest to recover. So yeah, it is a shame. I mean, it is quite entertaining and interesting to see all of these like alternative ways that people are suggesting events can go on. But again, like, events are sociable things, you know, that people go to them to be with other people. So it's also a bit like, oh, a bit of a shame when you kind of you see these like blocks set 2-3 meters apart from everybody else. I mean, some people, that's their ideal world, you know, to be in a little platform on your own with just you and your group. But in terms of like, I think what the majority of, if you're going to a festival, you like to be amongst people. I feel if that's your thing, you want to be in the jam with everyone. That's why you're going. So yeah, it kind of takes that element out of it for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, as you say, it is giving people that opportunity to think big, like, oh, what is the future of events? Like, what can we do? I mean, the fact that we're able to do digital, like webinars and things like that is, I think I've attended a few already and they seem to be working really well. But it is a shame when they set it so that it's only the speakers that you can see, like you can't see the other people there as well. But I was at one called Episodes of, and yeah, you could still see everyone that was there in the event as well as the speakers too. So that made it feel a little bit more like a community, a bit more of an event rather than just watching something on a screen, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about how we kind of move forward with events, and obviously using digital platforms like what we're on now seems to be the go-to for a lot of stuff. There's also the kind of worry in the back of everyone's mind that after months of lockdown and after months of countless video calls and meetings like this, that people are a bit like fed up of it. And so then to be like, here's an event, but it's in the same format, it's like, how do we still make it exciting for people who've had to convert to these kind of video type talks and calls and ways to be sociable? How do we make an event appeal still through this format? So that's, I think, the challenge while using these kind of platforms.
Yeah, for sure. Because even just looking at a screen, it feels like sometimes you just go to sleep just because it's like you're watching something, but then you're wanting to interact as well, but you can't because it's just a screen and you're not there in person. It's not the same feeling. So yeah. It's interesting, but I'm intrigued to see how it all works out. But I would definitely love to go back to being able to go to a venue, to be able to get some drinks with people that I don't know, and yeah, that would be great, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and it's reacting in real time as well, like especially if there's more than like 2-3 of you on a call, because obviously the way the sound works and there's like delays and like internet kind of connections and all of that technical problem that you have with this. It's like somebody will say something, and obviously if you're all sat around a table or at a bar, you all react in real time. And it doesn't matter if you laugh over each other or you make kind of comments over each other because you're all there. But when you do that online, then one person gets cut out and half of what somebody said doesn't get heard. And like it's all quite fragmented and you don't get that same, it's impossible to create the same feeling if you're in a room with people.
This next part is a nice little platform for you to talk about something that you want the creative industries to hear and do better to fix or sort or speak more about. So take it away.
I guess in light of all the conversations that have been happening of late, diversity has got to be the biggest thing that I feel needs to change or improve in the events industry, and not just across racial boundaries, across disability boundaries. You know, I think there's a kind of a big opportunity for companies to kind of really take a look and see just how inclusive they are. I think things like just really simple things like, is your office accessible to somebody in a wheelchair, or could you never hire somebody in a wheelchair because they could never get up the stairs to get into the room? Like basic things like that, you're cutting out a huge chunk of potential amazing workers just because they can't get into the room because you haven't thought about access. Like really, really simple things like that. I think are really important. Obviously, I feel like every workspace should be as racially diverse as possible, because I feel like having people come from different backgrounds, different walks of life can only improve a conversation. You've got, it doesn't matter what it's about, whether it's from a creative perspective or financial perspective. I feel like regardless of the sector, having people come from different places with different ways of thinking about an idea, it's going to help the company or help generate a better product regardless of where what sector you're working in. So I feel like only good things can come from making sure that every space is diverse, and not only kind of in the lower ranking jobs, like people making the decisions, that whoever is around that table needs to be just as diverse as everybody kind of doing the odd jobs in the office space. It needs to kind of be all the way through. It doesn't matter if you've got a very diverse bunch of people on the floor, but if everyone making all the decisions is one type of person, then it's like those decisions are always going to override anything that the group of people in the room decides, if there's no one diverse at the top levels as well. So I feel like it will take time for sure, masses of time, but I hope that kind of in light of everything that's kind of been very much in the conversation over the past few months, that places really start to look at how diverse and inclusive they are, because I think only good things can come of it, really.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's I was speaking to someone for YDY, and they mentioned that this time's a bit like Scrooge from the Christmas story, like where they start to reconsider everything. They start looking back and realizing, oh my gosh, I was like this, but so I need to change. I think that's happening to a lot of people. And as you say, like the more diverse your workplace is, the better your work and products and ideas will be, because everyone's from these different backgrounds, and that they can all give you something completely new to what you would ever think, because you've not experienced what they have experienced. So exactly. My next question would be about a topic that isn't actually heard so much in the creative industries, but about disability. And I've been doing a lot of research recently actually on disabilities and how I can make my work inclusive, and how I can find more disabled creatives. That has been actually quite hard. I think a lot of people, it's hard to come out as disabled, I think, because of some like negative connotations that the word disabled has. But it would be interesting to hear your perspective on this and your experience as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a huge one. I kind of touched on it before about inclusivity, including disabled people. And I think it's something that is hugely overlooked. I've never worked in a space which has been completely accessible. I can't think of an office or an agency that I've worked for that is completely accessible. I can't think of one, which is actually a real shame. In terms of my own kind of thoughts and feelings and experience with this, I am disabled. It's what people would say is an invisible disability, in that you see me, know me, my day to day, you wouldn't know, but it's it's very much there, and affects me on a daily basis. And interesting that you like said you found it quite difficult to find people who kind of either want to talk about it or kind of want to share experiences and stuff like that, because I feel, I mean, up until now, I've been extremely secretive about my own disability because of the negative connotations around it, because I don't want people to hear about it and make assumptions about what I can and can't do based on it. I don't want people to feel like, oh, that's gonna like might be a problem that we don't really want to have to deal with later on down the line, and so maybe we'll bypass her for a job because, you know, who knows what difficulties that might throw up, or second guessing your abilities as a professional because they assume that they know what that disability is. They assume they hear the name, and they make up their, even if they have no experience of it, they make up their own assumptions about what that means for you as an individual, and that seems to override everything else that is true about you. You know, like, you are a multifaceted person, you have a skill set, you are professional and whatever, but somehow I feel you say that, oh, but as well as those other 101 things, why does the disability seem to trump everything else? And that's the thing that people remember, or the people get a bit worried about, or people kind of skew on. And I think that's why kind of up until now, and even now, like this is the first time I've kind of been this open about it, because I don't tell people I work with, you know, only like my close friends really know, obviously family, but yeah, so it is a really tricky subject, but I feel and hope that if more people are open about it and like can see that, oh, she or he has done all these things despite their disability, that hasn't defined who they are as a person or as a professional, then maybe people will speak up more about it. And if the conversation is more open, then places of work will be in their face more, so they will have to consider accessibility in their buildings. They will have to, you know, consider that maybe we need to make one of the toilets a disabled toilet. They will, you know, all these things that now, because you don't hear about it, and people like me keep it a secret, they don't feel like they have to deal with the problem. They don't feel like they have to make sure that there's a lift if your, you know, office is not on the ground floor or things like that. They can ignore it because it's not affecting them personally. But the more people that they know, so many people have a disability, whether it's a visible one or not, that every one of us is bound to know somebody, even if not, they haven't told us, they're probably in contact with somebody who has some form of disability. So the more that's kind of on the forefront, and we don't feel ashamed to share that about ourselves, and it is one small part of who we are as human beings, then maybe the work environment will be more open to accommodating us, because it isn't something that's happening to others over there. It's like all around them. So I hope that kind of by being more honest and open myself, that will kind of spark a small change.
Yeah.
That's my hope. Yeah.
No, for sure. I after speaking to you first time, was so happy to just hear someone else was kind of going through the same stuff that I was going through. Of course, like we have different disabilities, but there were so many similarities in like experiences of people, as you said earlier, of assuming your disability. And I think that the quick judgment comes from the stereotypes created from the media and things like that. So
I've had the opposite. I've had where, because people can't see it, they assume that I'm lying or exaggerating or taking the mick in some way, shape or form. I have a condition called rheumatoid arthritis, which I got when I was 16, and affects me in multiple ways. It's mainly controlled by medication, but I can walk around like unaided. There was a time where I couldn't, And so it was a much more obvious. There was a time where I was actually in a wheelchair. And so obviously people looked at me as a disabled person at that point. And I hated the way I felt the world looked at me when I was in that state. I hated that. I felt like people thought I was capable of less because I was in a chair. And even again, like you were saying, people with well-meaning intentions can sometimes come across really insulting, or the behaviour be really upsetting because they've made a set of assumptions about you because you've got your hearing aids in or you're in a chair that aren't actually true. Like, you don't need to talk to me like I'm a baby because you can see this thing in my ear. In the same way as, like, you know, I've had, like, for example, when I was in a chair, I went to the supermarket with my mum, and she's looking at one thing and I'm sat in the chair not doing much, and I've had, like, a complete stranger, like, move my chair out of the way, like, and I'm like, you can't just move me. You can't just move me, literally move my body, like, because I'm in a, do you know what I mean? And, like, you're like, and then they're like, oh, sorry, I just needed to get this thing. But it's like, you wouldn't push, if I was stood up, you wouldn't push me out the way to get the thing. You would say, excuse, you know, you would talk to me and be like, oh, sorry, can I get by you? But because, you know, I was in a chair, I don't know what they assumed or what they were thinking, but to them that was fine, they could do that. And then I was annoyed and kind of retaliated. But so I really hated being that unwell. But nowadays I'm not in that position where I have to use a chair. It still affects me. We could quickly revert back to that stage if I wasn't on my medication and so on. And I still have days where it's quite difficult. And I think because of the name of my condition, people assume that, like, oh, it's like a thing that old people get, like, you got arthritis, you can't move. Actually, a lot of it's actually an immune system condition, not to kind of go into it too much, but it affects you. It affects kind of a lot of other things. The joint aspect is almost a side effect. The actual illness itself is something that's going on inside your body. And so, again, people make assumptions because it's got the word arthritis in it. They make assumptions about what that means to you and what you can and cannot do. But I've had when I was I've had people assume I might have a bad day and be finding it really quite difficult to move, and I have a disabled badge, which I try and only use when I really need to, because I appreciate that there are also people who are permanently in a wheelchair and have accessible vehicles and all of that stuff. But there are times when I'm feeling bad. But at the same time, for years I resisted using it at all. I was like, I will never use it because I couldn't bear being that person who felt like I needed to do that. And even now, I'm like, oh, I can't. Even when I feel like I'm struggling, I really resist using it. I really struggle with being that person. Some of it's come from using it and hearing somebody make a snide comment because I come out of the car and I'm not in a chair. They assume that I'm taking a piss, I'm taking a mick. And then I literally feel like crawling just back into the car and take it away and just like disappearing. Like, I'm so horrified by the fact that somebody thought that and said that I'm like, oh my God, I can't, this is awful. So I've kind of had it more the other way, people assuming, that because it's an invisible thing, that I'm like lying or being dishonest or abusing the system. And kind of apart from the one time where somebody moved the chair. So it's really tricky. It's really tricky, and I'm sure people have got many, many stories and experiences of like having been misjudged because of their disability. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for starters, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know it wasn't easy.
Okay.
But I'm sure that will open a lot of eyes to how
Mm.
we disabled people are treated.
Mm.
It's not fair. Like, I think for a long time for me, I felt like I was the problem, like having to maybe ask someone to repeat something again or to speak a little bit louder. I felt like it was always my fault. And,
Mm.
then they could give me an eye roll and be like, oh, just like, why, And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what I've learned now after doing a lot of research and talking to people is the fact that it's not your problem. Like, it's not your fault. And it's about other people having patience, and also just a better understanding of what you're going through. As you say, like, you might have a disability, but you're not either. You like, there's a whole spectrum. Like, there's a whole, like, I don't know how to explain it, but you could either be like minorly, or you could be like severely, or you could be right in the middle. But because of stereotypes and the media and things like that, the portrayal of what a disability is, there are a lot of people that just automatically think, oh, severe, like, oh, and I think they forget that we're human almost, because they can't relate, because they don't understand. It's so I hope that it just encourages people to listen more. I know it's not the complete. I can't speak. I know it's not the complete same situation or topic, but it's similar to the Black Lives Matter movement, where Black people are asking to just be heard, to be listened to. And it's crazy that it's just taken this amount of time for people to finally realize and be like, oh, Black lives matters. Like, they have always mattered. Like, why are you only realizing this now? Like I
Yeah.
say, of course, it's not exactly the same, but context wise of understanding, I think disability can be put into that column, as well
Yeah.
as there's just not enough understanding.
For sure. I think the main problem is people's exposure to people that are different from themselves. I feel like if you live in a bubble and you only associate with people who look and think and act the way you do, then you're going to have no understanding of groups of people that are different from that. And so everything that you build up about how life works is going to be a very, very small portion of how it actually does work. So it kind of ties everything in terms of why workplaces need to be way more diverse, because the more exposure we have in our day-to-day lives to people that are different from us, the better understanding and the more empathy and the more we can adjust the way we think and feel towards different groups of people, the more that's going to happen, because we understand, if we know somebody who's disabled and we know that they're great at their job, we know that they make us laugh, we know that they're a great person, and we know that they've got so many other elements to them as a human being than just their disability. But when issues around disability come up, you know not to just look at them as this alien creature that has this illness that is going to be a real pain in the ass you have to deal with in the office. You know that they're a fully faceted human being. They just need a lift to get up to the first floor. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not this like big scary thing, these people over here that have this thing. And the same with just people from different races. If you don't know anyone from any other race other than your own, then maybe they all do seem really weird and alien to you, and you make assumptions based on what the media tell you about who these people are and how they behave, which obviously isn't true. But you don't know that until you have contact with other groups of people. Like, no matter what somebody might tell you, unless you have first-hand contact and experience with a range of people, they always are going to seem like the other. So integration and diversity in all walks of life is essential if we're going to stop repeating this madness that seems to be going on. Like the whole idea that people are having to explain that their lives matter, like you were saying, is insanity. Imagine having to explain to another human being that your life matters. Like that's insanity. And there are people that are like, yeah, but hold on, like it's mad.
It doesn't make any sense.
Make any sense. Exactly. So it's like how the only way to move on from that point is if we like seriously mix things up in every way we can. Like it's the only way, I think.
Oh, and like I'm just so sorry, like that this has had to happen. Like the fact that there's, as you say, like there's still debate on this topic. It's like, what? Why? What is there to debate about? Everyone matters, and especially Black people matter. It's
not even especially, it's like as much as. It's like nobody's asking for special treatment. We're just like, in the same way that you value your life and your rights, we value ours, and we're just saying we want to be included, we want to be worth the same. And there is still people going, yeah, but the thing is, like, I mean, mental.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't get why people would still debate it. It just blows my mind, but that's the world we live in. But I really hope that it gets better. And I think because people have had that Scrooge moment of realizing and being like, wow, whoa, there's such a massive thing I need to do to change myself and my views and things, that people actually are proactive to doing that and become allies, like that actually want to lift one another up. And so
I mean it's all, and I think there's an element of, I guess, self-pride and not wanting to be wrong that I think slows the progress down. People have a fear of admitting that they were wrong. They said something wrong. They had the wrong idea in their head about a group of people. And instead of just going, you know what, I had it all wrong, let me learn, like try and move on, they hold on to that, like, no, my way is the right way. For some reason, the pride takes over. And that's, I think, the biggest that's the thing that slows the progress down, is kind of the reluctance to acknowledge a mistake and move on from it and learn from it, which we all do every day because we are human. But there seems to be this real resistance to just acknowledge that we are all learning how to be better. I feel like if everyone just like let go of their egos and was like, yeah, that was really not cool, let's try and be different and be better and just embrace that, progress would be made a lot quicker, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing and for taking some time out to chat with me. I really appreciate it. There were some great things highlighted here, so a massive thank you for being so open and for sharing as well, because it's not easy.
Thank you. It's been a good chat. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh well, I will let you go so that you can continue your day.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.